Rob Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries. Merry Christmas, everyone. We hope that you're experiencing God's grace and mercy in your home in a special way this Christmas season. And Christmas is a season of gifts, so we have a gift for you. We just released a brand new iPhone game, a Bible history game for families, for kids, for teenagers. It's called the Bible History Game. It is super cool. You're going to love playing it with your family this Christmas season. Your job is to arrange the events of the Bible and ancient history into the right order. It is totally free. There's no in-app purchases. There is no spyware. It's just free, it's just fun, and you can enjoy learning about the Bible together as a family. The game is called the Bible History Game. It is on the Apple App Store. You will see the icon. It looks like a little yellow cross. And after you play the game, take a minute, give it a 5-star review, pass it on to a friend. We have created this because we want to help families enjoy learning about the Bible together. Well, at Christmas time, we celebrate Jesus's birthday. And when we celebrate someone's birthday, we bring them gifts. And in the Bible, we read about some men who brought gifts to worship little Jesus. And these are the wise men. And in today's episode, I want to unpack the real history of the wise men and these gifts that they brought to baby Jesus, and why those gifts are so important. So we're going to start off in Matthew chapter 2. It says, "Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, 'Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him.'" Now, you may be familiar with the old Christmas carol, "We three kings of Orient are." We actually don't know how many there were. Historically, traditionally, we say 3. The Bible just says wise men. We also don't know the exact country that they came from. It says they came from the east. Now, most believe it would have been the area of ancient Babylon. This was the great empire to the east of Israel. We do know that these wise men knew the prophecies of the Old Testament. They knew that God had promised to send a king from the Jewish people. And this would make sense because the prophet Daniel was second in command in Babylon and then in Persia. He was like the vice president of Babylon. Certainly they would have had Daniel's prophecies about this Messiah. And it's likely that they would have had the other books of the Old Testament that the Jews brought with them into exile. But we know that they had some knowledge of the Bible because they didn't show up to Herod and say, "Hey, a couple years ago, we saw this light in the sky. We decided to make the trip. Tell us what it means." They believed this star, this light, this glory of God, I'll talk about that in a moment, this glory of God was his star, the Messiah's star, and that they had come to worship him. Now, verse 3, "When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him. And assembling the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, 'In Bethlehem of Judea, for it is so written by the prophet, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel.'" The wise men are convinced that the King of the Jews has been born. Herod, who's King of the Jews at this moment, he calls a meeting with the chief priests and scribes and asks them, "Hey, what is this all about? Where is this Christ, this Messiah?" By the way, the New Testament term for Messiah in Greek is Christ. The Old Testament term Hebrew is Messiah, Mashiach. And so Christ and Messiah are two interchangeable words. Okay, where is this Christ, this Messiah, this king supposed to be born? And the scribes, the Jewish leaders, they all know the answer. They say, "Yeah, Bethlehem, Judea." Then they quote the prophecy from the book of Micah. Now, one thing that's fascinating to me and sad at the same time, they all knew where God said the Messiah would be born. They claimed to be waiting for Messiah to save them, to set them free, to forgive their sins. You'd think that they'd have people camped out in Bethlehem, waiting, watching, ready with anticipation. But that doesn't seem to be the case. And how many people does that describe today? People who know all the truth about Christ in their brains, but they don't love him. They don't follow him. They don't serve him. Verse 7. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, Go and search diligently for the child, and when you've found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him. Of course, we know Herod did not want to go worship him. Herod wanted to kill him. After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. Now, this is speculation here, but I want to suggest, and many other theologians have done the same, that this star is not a star in the sense of a literal star in the sky, because stars, you don't follow them in that sense. They chart their course in the heaven. They don't move and settle over houses. But that this, I think, was a miraculous light in the sky. It certainly looked like a star in some sense, but it was the glory of God, just like the shepherds saw the glory of God illuminate the sky, just like the glory of God illuminated the top of Mount Sinai. I think this was a manifestation of the glory of God as light. I also think it's interesting that Herod, the Jews, the scribes, I don't think they saw this. I think it was a special manifestation for the wise men. Because if Herod and the scribes saw this light, if everyone in Judea saw this light, well, Herod wouldn't have had to ask them, well, where is he? Let me know when you find him, because he could have just followed this light as well. Again, that's speculation, but I think it's fair. I think it was a special revealing of the glory of God for these particular men. So, after listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. Another thing that's interesting here is the timeline. The wise men tell Herod, when he asks them how long or when did the star appear, the indicator is not days or weeks, but years. In fact, 2 years. This was a very long journey for the wise men to take. And I'm sure as soon as they saw this light, this star, they didn't pack their bags and leave immediately. There would have been time to prepare that trip. So Jesus is still in Bethlehem with Mary and Joseph, but he's no longer in the manger. He's no longer in this area outside the inn, in the stable, because verse 11 says that they found him in a house. You have to remember that Joseph, this is where his family was. This is his hometown. This is where his extended family was. So it would make sense that Mary and Joseph were now staying with friends and extended family in Bethlehem. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceeding with great joy. And going into the house, baby Jesus is no longer a baby. He's a little boy, 1-year-old, 2-year-old. Going into the house, they saw the child with Mary and his mother, and they fell down and worshiped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. Well, while we don't know how many wise men there were, we do know they brought 3 gifts. And each of those gifts is very important. In fact, each of the gifts tells us something very important about who Jesus is. The first one is gold. They brought him gold. Now, as I'm recording this podcast right now, I'm looking down at the ring finger on my left hand. I am wearing gold as we speak. I have a gold wedding ring. Amy gave me this on our wedding day as a pledge to me of her faithfulness, and I gave her a ring, a pledge of my faithfulness. Actually, this is not the ring that Amy gave me. That ring was lost in a game of pool volleyball a number of years ago. It came off, it lost it. I have no idea where it is. So this is actually a replacement, but that's another story. But today, it's not uncommon for regular people like me to have gold. In those days, gold was a gift for a king. It was something that royalty had. Regular people did not have gold on them. And they gave gold to Jesus because Jesus is king. He's king of this world right now. Revelation 19, in fact, says he is the King of Kings. In American language, we might say he's the president of the presidents. And there's a couple pictures in the Bible about Jesus's kingship that I think are helpful. One of them is this prophecy that the government shall be upon his shoulders. Sometimes I love putting my kids up on my shoulders. The older I get and the bigger they get, it's getting more and more difficult. Quick funny story about that. One time I lifted Millie up on my shoulders and she would have been 8, 9, 10 years old. And she says, "Dad, you're getting a lot of gray hair up here." And I said, "I know, honey, I'm getting older. It's okay, no problem." She said, "Dad, no, when was the last time you were up here?" Is what she says to me. So that's okay. But as parents, sometimes we put our little kids up on our shoulders, and that's great. Well, the Bible says that the government of the world is on the shoulders of Jesus. Just as easily as a father slings a little kid up on his shoulders, that's how easily the government of the entire world rests on the shoulders of Jesus. Well, what about nations that reject him? What about nations that stand against him? God gives us another picture of Jesus's kingship in the Bible. It says in Psalm 110, verse 1, God the Father says to Jesus, his son, "Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool." In other words, that nations that stand against the kingship of Christ are like an ottoman. They're like a footstool. Jesus rests his feet on them. It's a picture of his complete sovereignty, a picture of his complete supremacy, that all of human history is under his good and sovereign control. So he's not just king of the Jews, but in fact, king of the world, king of the universe. So the first gift, gold, tells us that Jesus is king. Now let's look at the next one, frankincense. Frankincense was an oil, or a fragrance, or a resin. It was an essential oil. Any of you moms into that stuff? In fact, I was talking with my wife about these 3 gifts, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I've got some frankincense in my apothecary cabinet at home." So again, it's a sweet smelling fragrance or spice. So why would they give that to a little boy? Why would they give that to little Jesus? Well, frankincense is mentioned many times in the Bible because it was used to worship God. In the Old Testament, lots of examples where God told the people to burn frankincense when they prayed or when they worshiped or made sacrifices. It was a part of the Old Testament temple system. Now, Christians aren't required to do that today, but it was a picture like of prayers rising up to God. Now, remember, what did the wise men tell Herod that they wanted to do when they found the child? We've come to say hi to him. We've come to take pictures with him. We've come to meet his parents. What did they say they wanted to do? We have come to worship him. They came to worship him because Jesus was not only a king, Jesus was the Son of God. He was not only fully human, but fully God. He's King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the God of the gods, small g. So the gift of gold tells us Jesus is king. The gift of frankincense tells us that Jesus is God. Well, what about the third gift? Myrrh, Myrrh. I think that's the correct spelling. You'll have to check it for me. But this was another spice, another fragrance. And it was a very unusual gift for a small child because myrrh was a spice or a fragrance often used back then to prepare a body to be buried after a person died. So this would be like giving a baby a coffin as a present. That'd be weird. It'd be kind of creepy. You wouldn't give a little child a birthday gift of a coffin. But this gift wasn't an accident. It wasn't weird. It was a gift that tells us who Jesus is and what he came to do. The gift of myrrh tells us that Jesus came to die. In fact, the next time we hear about myrrh is the day that Jesus did die. About 30 years after this wise men visitation, when he's on the cross and he's thirsty, the soldiers offer him a drink of wine mixed with myrrh. Now, myrrh might smell nice, but you wouldn't want to drink it. It'd be bitter. And Jesus, of course, did not take it. A few hours later, on that Good Friday, Jesus died, and a man named Joseph of Arimathea, who was a believer in Jesus, along with Nicodemus. You might remember Nicodemus. Nicodemus was one of the Pharisees, and Nicodemus is the one who met Jesus late that night in John chapter 3 because he wanted to know who he was. He had questions that needed answering. So it was Joseph of Arimathea along with Nicodemus who took the body of Jesus and prepared it for burial with myrrh and other spices. The Bible says in John 15:39, Nicodemus brought 75 pounds of myrrh and spices to prepare the body. The gift of frankincense to little Jesus tells us what he came to do, that he came to die. And I can't help but think about this man, Nicodemus, caring for Jesus's body. Maybe he was thinking about what Jesus said to him that night when they met in secret. He wanted to know who Jesus was. He wanted to know what Jesus had come to do. And Jesus told him, maybe the most famous verse in the entire Bible. Jesus said to Nicodemus, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him might not perish, but have everlasting life." And if we want to worship Jesus, these three gifts tell us the three things we need to believe about him. We need to believe that Jesus is King. We need to believe that Jesus is God. And we need to believe that Jesus died for us. And the good news, of course, is he did not stay dead, but rose again. And it's Christmas season right now, but Easter season is coming very, very soon. And we want to encourage you, just as the wise men gave gifts to Jesus, that here at Christmas time, we can give gifts to Jesus as well. We can worship Jesus through gift giving. It is a little strange at Christmas. I mean, it is the birthday of Jesus, but we give gifts to everybody else except to the birthday boy. So imagine it's like your birthday party. We have a lot of kids listening to Family Vision. Kids, imagine with me, it's your birthday party. You got 4 or 5 friends around the table. And we've had the pizza, we've had the cake, they've sung happy birthday, and now it's present time. And one of your friends picks up the present, and instead of giving it to you, gives it to one of your friends. And your friend opens it up and says, "Wow, awesome, thank you for the present." And then another friend takes a present off the table, and instead of giving it to you, they give it to another friend. And your other friend opens it up, and all the presents are passed out to your friends. They take them all home, and you get none. That would be a weird birthday party, right? The birthday boy or the birthday girl is supposed to be the one who gets the present. So, same at Christmas. Whose birthday is it? Well, it's Jesus's birthday, but we pass out presents to everybody else, and we don't think about giving him presents. Now, giving gifts to each other is a great thing to do, but giving gifts to Jesus is even more important. So, what would be some ways that you could give a birthday present to Jesus this year? This is something in our family that we have as a Christmas tradition where we have a birthday party for Jesus. We sing to him. We have a cake, which we eat. But then we just share some gifts that we want to give him. So over the years, here are some of the gifts that Amy or I or our kids have given to Jesus. Here are some examples. Starting a prayer journal, loving my neighbor, honoring my parents, memorizing more scripture, being more generous, not being too easily provoked, getting along better with my siblings. My gift to Jesus last year was to stop wasting time. I was spending too much time on my phone, wasting time that Jesus had given me, and I wanted to give him that gift of more of my time. Other gifts that our family's given to Jesus over the years, remembering God's faithfulness when I'm stressed. We write these down, by the way, so that we can remember, and each Christmas go back to the gifts we gave Jesus last year to remember. Reading the Bible in 1 year, not complaining, trusting God with everything. Be careful with what I'm thinking about. Take every thought captive to Jesus. When I wake up, start my day with prayer instead of looking at my phone. Now, these are just some ideas. And I want to encourage you, take some time and either individually or even better as a family, maybe listen to this podcast. listen to the power of the gifts that the wise men brought to Jesus, and talk about this idea of, well, if it's his birthday, what are gifts that we can give to him to worship and love and serve him this Christmas? We also want to invite your family to become a visionary family. We are starting a brand new thing right here at Christmas time in our ministry. We are starting the Visionary Family Community. It is a global group of families that are joining together to help each other follow Christ. You're like, well, what is a visionary family? A visionary family is simply a family that wants to follow Jesus and help the future generations do the same. If that's you, you're like, yeah, Rob, I want our family to follow Jesus. I want the future generations to follow Jesus. Well, then you are a visionary family. And I would love for you to join this community. Amy and I and our team here at VFM, we want to build a closer relationship with you. We want to come alongside you to encourage you, if you're married, in your marriage relationship, to be healing your family relationships, to be helping your siblings have a Christ-centered relationship with one another, helping parents and grandparents pass faith to their kids. I want you to go to our website, visionaryfam.com. Right up at the top is the button, Join the Community. You can learn all about this. Learn all the ways that our ministry wants to come alongside you and build this personal relationship with you so that we can walk this journey as families following Jesus together. We would love it. And again, Merry Christmas, and we look forward to our next time together with you on Family Vision.